Marava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from the Srimad-bhagavatam, 8th canto, chapter 1, text 11. Yan pashyati na pashyantam Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani layang devam Suparnam upadavata Yang pashyati na pashyantang Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani layang devam Suparnam upadavata Yang pashyati na pashyantang Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani nilayang devam Suparnam upadavataha or davataha. Sorry. Okay, others? Please chant. Yang pashyati na pashyantang Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani layang devam Suparnam upadavata Yang pashyati na pasyantam Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani layang devam Suparnam upadavata Yang pashyati na pasyantam Chakshurasya narishyati Tang bhutani layang devam Suparnam upadavata. Jiva, you want to try? Okay. Soon. Yam. He who. Pashyati. The living entity sees. Na. Not. Pashyantam. Although always seeing. Chakshu. I. Yasha. Whose. Na. Never. Rishyati. Diminishes. Tam. Him. Bhutanilayam. The original source of all living entities. Devam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Suparnam, who accompanies the living entity as a friend. Upadavata, everyone should worship. Translation. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly watches the activities of the world, no one sees him. However, one should not think that because no one sees him, he does not see, for his power to see is never diminished. Therefore, everyone should worship the Supersoul, who always stays with the individual soul as a friend. Repeat after me. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly watches the activities of the world. No one sees him. However, one should not think that because no one sees him, he does not see. For his power to see is never diminished. Therefore, everyone should worship the Supersoul, who always stays with the individual soul as a friend. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Offering prayers to Krishna, Srimati Kunti Devi, the mother of the Pandavas, said, Alakshang sarvabhutanam antar vahir avastitam. Quote, Krishna, you reside both inside and outside of everything, yet the unintelligent conditioned souls cannot see you. End quote. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through jnana chakshu, eyes of knowledge. One who opens these eyes of knowledge is called a spiritual master. Thus we offer our prayer to the spiritual master with the following shloka. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Kinachana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Quote, I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who with the torchlight of knowledge has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance. This is from the Gautama Tantra. The Guru's task is to open the disciples' eyes of knowledge. When the disciple is awakened from ignorance to knowledge, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, because the Lord actually is everywhere. Andantara sta paramanu chayantara stam. The Lord resides within the universe. He resides within the hearts of all living entities, and he resides even within the atom. Because we lack perfect knowledge, we cannot see God. But a little deliberation can help us to see God everywhere. This requires training. With a little deliberation, even the most degraded person can perceive the presence of God. If we take into account whose property is the vast ocean, whose property is the vast land, how the sky exists, how the numberless millions of stars and planets are set in the sky, who has made the universe and whose property is it, we should certainly come to the conclusion that there is a proprietor of everything. When we claim proprietorship over a certain piece of land, whether individually or for our families or nations, we should also consider how we became the proprietors. The land was there before our birth. Before we came to the land. The land was there before our birth, before we came to the land. How did it become our property? Such deliberation will help us understand that there is a supreme proprietor of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Godhead is always awake. In the conditioned stage, we forget things because we change our bodies. But because the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not change his body, he remembers past, present, and future. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 1, Imang vivasute yogam proktavam aham avyayam. I spoke this science of God, Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god at least 14 million years ago. When Arjuna inquired from Krishna how he could remember incidents that had taken place so long ago, the Lord answered that Arjuna was also present at that time. Because Arjuna is Krishna's friend, wherever Krishna goes, Arjuna goes. But the difference is that Krishna remembers everything, whereas the living entity like Arjuna, being a minute particle of the Supreme Lord, forgets. Therefore, it is said, the Lord's vigilance is never diminished. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15. Sarvasya chalham hridi sangnivishto matakshvitir jnanam apohanam cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature is always present within the hearts of all living entities. And from Him come memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. This is also indicated in this verse by the word suparnam, which means friend. In the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.6, it is therefore said, Dwa suparna sayuja sakaya samanam riksham parisha swajate. Two birds are sitting on the same tree as friends. One bird is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other is simply observing. This observing bird is always present as a friend to the eating bird and giving him remembrance of things he wanted to do. Thus, we take into account the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our daily affairs. Thus, if we take into account the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our daily affairs, we can see Him, or at least perceive His presence everywhere. The words Chakshur Yasha Na Rishati mean that although we cannot see Him, this does not mean that He cannot see us. Nor does He die when the cosmic manifestation is annihilated. The example is given in this connection that the sunshine is present when the sun is present. But when the sun is not present, or when we cannot see the sun, this does not mean that the sun is lost. The sun is there, but we cannot see it. Similarly, although we cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our present darkness or lack of knowledge, He is always present, seeing our activities. As a Paramatma, He is a witness and advisor. Upashvati and Anumanta. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and studying authorized literatures, one can understand that God is present before us, seeing everything, although we have no eyes with which to see Him. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Guru. Translation once again. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly watches the activities of this world, no one sees Him. However, one should not think that because no one sees Him, he does not see. For His power to see is never diminished. Therefore, everyone should worship the Super Soul, who always stays with the individual soul as a friend. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. So there's So everything belongs to God, and we were just temporarily using things. Uh, Krishna is just loaning so many things to us, including our body, so that we can use it in His service. Of course, not everyone understands why they have the body, but Lord Krishna is loaning it to us, and um, of course this is not just now. Throughout human society, actually throughout the the material creation, because of the animals also are thinking that I am this body, and my purpose in life is to enjoy like that. But anyway, there's a nice story. What do you read this? It's one of these ancient Indian stories. There was a king. There's like storybooks, but they actually were in fact historical. There was a king sometime in the past, and he had his intelligent advisor there, and so the advisor was always trying to, the king wasn't like all that smart. He didn't see a lot of things he couldn't see, so his advisor would always be trying to teach him lessons. So one day, in the king's palace, this saintly-looking person came and just sat down somewhere inside the palace, because anyone could, in those days, could walk into the palace. So he sat down there, and he started offering prayers and glorifying God, and he was doing what one would do usually you go to a dharmashal, you're traveling a place of pilgrimage, and you stay somewhere, and you're there for a day or two, and you move on. But while he's there, he was so much engaged in offering prayers and so on. So he was doing this. Started in the morning, kept going on and on and on, and the palace guards were thinking, why is he still here? They tried to get him to go. He didn't pay it. He just ignored them, and so finally, by the end of the day, he's still praying like that. He's not moving. Doesn't care for anyone. The king himself comes, and he says, he's just trying to be respectful because it's a saintly person. So he goes to this saintly person. He says, this is a king's palace. This is my palace. I live here. This palace belongs to me, and this is not a dharmashal that you come through and you're engaged in your religious activities, and then you travel on the next day. This actually is mine. So then the saintly person asked him, okay, my dear king, who was living here before you? And the king says, well, before me was my father, and before him was my grandfather, and before him was my great-grandfather, and I hope that after me, my sons and grandsons and so on will all be living here. So he says, oh, so there's so much change of who's staying here. The same thing as in Dharmashal. You just come, you visit, and you go on. So he was explaining like this to the king, which got him to think, oh, I'm calling this mine, but actually, yeah, I'm only here temporarily, maybe for a few years, maybe 10, 20, 100, however many years it was, but actually I can't really say it's mine, honestly. So he made the point. The king got the point. And then the saintly person took off his disguise, his false beard, and and then he saw that actually this was his own advisor who was trying to teach him something. But sometimes the kings don't want to listen to the advisor, so that somebody tells them, you do like this, and it'll say, who are you? but so he didn't so he tricked him. He went through all this trouble, stayed there the whole day, putting on this whole big show, just so the king himself would have to come, and then he'd have a chance to teach the king a lesson. And we see this different times, this tendency, or this practice. There was also the Srimad-bhagavatam and I don't remember which canto. The history of the King Prachinivarhi. He was the father of the Prachetas, the 10 Prachetas who stayed underwater for thousands of years and performed devotional service in their meditations. Anyway, they became pure devotees of Krishna. He, the king, was becoming, thinking, how can I perform sacrifices, animal sacrifices, and there was some method to get elevated to the heavenly planets. So he was thinking like that, but he was messing up. He was actually just committing sinful activities in his attempt to do these sacrifices. So Narada Muni showed him some mercy, and he did, he popped into his, or flew, appeared in his palace. Back then, people were more pious, so if Narada Muni comes in and just appears in front of you, then it wasn't so surprising. They knew who he was. So he came there, but he didn't directly. He wanted to teach that king that what you're doing is not good, and you should engage in devotional service like your sons have done. They already perfected their lives, and you are ruining your life. And he showed him that by his mystic ability, that see all these, like in the sky, I see all these animals. These are animals that you have killed for your material gain, and they are going to come back when you die, and they're going to cause you a lot of pain. Animals with horns and teeth and like that, but they're going to come back and they're going to hurt you because what you're doing is wrong. But he didn't stop there. Narada Muni told him a very long and detailed story of a king. The king's name was Puranjana. You've heard of Puranjana? Puranjana, well, he was an allegorical king. But anyway, it's a long story. It actually goes over several chapters in the Srimad-bhagavatam. Hopefully it's upcoming, because I don't recall where it was. But Puranjana, he was a king, and he basically lived his life and did the same things, material things, that the King Prachinivarhi was doing. And he had a lot of problems, and in the end, everything was lost to Puranjana. I can't go into all the details of it. It's a very long story, and then there's another chapter at the end of everything giving further explanation about all the intricate details of this allegory. But anyway, the point was, as far as related to this, the Narada Muni got his attention because here's a king who likes to. You're a king. You like to hear about kings. You like to hear about great kings. So he was a king who was listening, and he was attracted to hearing about this great story of this great king who actually didn't exist, but it was an allegory. It was a story made up to teach some lesson. So they did. So they went. So Narada Muni convinced them like that by telling this whole story, and then the king who would never have sat down and just taken and okay, you just got to reject all this animal sacrifice and everything, and just engage in devotional service. He never would have accepted that straight right out. But after hearing the story, then he got the lesson out of the story, just like we have in. I was going to. I was little in school. They had what they call it Aesop's fables. I don't know if that's still being shown, but Aesop's fables were just using Aesop was you couldn't go out and directly criticize so many things in society, but he would make up these stories, and he'd make up these stories and teach lessons using make up people and sometimes stories involved. Jai Shishi Gornitai, Shishi Radha, Brajavihari, Jagannath, Balaram, Lady Subhadra, Sringade, Prabhat Maharaj Ki Jai. But he would make up Aesop. He would make up these different stories to teach the people who happen to hear the stories. Teach so many different lessons. But he did it in such a way that he didn't get a political problem in the society, because he wasn't directly pointing out the individuals who he was actually trying to teach. Anyway, there's examples like that, both in Srimad-bhagavatam and outside, where someone teach where you teach someone a lesson in that way. But going on with the purport here. We were talking about the how we have to understand that not everything is nothing actually is our property. Even this body is not our property. Someone might say, this is my body, or this is me, the total bodily concept of life, and I can do with my body whatever I feel like doing with my body. Say like that, but if you abuse the body, then the body gets sick, diseased, and so on. And if you destroy the body, then you lose it. Someone who destroyed, got suicide. You commit suicide. The normal reaction for that is you take. I don't say take birth exactly, but because usually birth means but you take on the form of a ghost. A ghost just means mind, intelligence, and false ego, and there's no body. So you still have all your desires, all your anxieties, you have everything you had before, but you have no body that you can even try to do anything with. You cannot, and you definitely cannot engage in any kind of spiritual activity. We have to use this body in Krishna's service. So if someone gets a ghost form, then they cannot do anything on their own. It depends on. That's why in the India culture or Vedic culture, there's a what's it called? Shraddha ceremony. It's all meant to help someone who had been sinful during their life to get who maybe is suffering in hell, or who maybe got a ghost body, to help them to elevate, because they cannot elevate themselves in a certain condition. Or if they fell in a lower species of life and they cannot elevate themselves because only a human being can do that. So anyway, we are not this body. The body does not belong to us, but if we understand if we understand I am spirit soul and I am servant of Krishna, then the natural conclusion is I need to engage in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. That should be the conclusion if we have that knowledge. So another point in here. So Arjuna, Srila was describing how, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I spoke this science of God, Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god at least 40 million years ago. And that was when he was speaking it. Actually, I think Srila actually, the conclusion of it from that time, it was definitely more than 40 million years ago, because the conclusion in the purport was it was maybe 120 million years ago when it was first spoken. The Bhagavad Gita is very old. So Lord Krishna is saying like that, and Arjuna is saying, how is it possible that you spoke that so long ago, and yet we're the same age, or similar age? How is this possible? And Lord Krishna explains that many births, actually said many. How do you say? Arjuna and Krishna have appeared many times, but Arjuna, each time he appears, he, the soul, takes on a different body. So he doesn't remember anything from the previous life. But Krishna is saying that I've come. Actually, he says births, but it's not, in a sense, it's not really birth, because birth really means the soul is going into the body. But Krishna appears, at least, again and again and again. Of course, Krishna is his body. He's not different from his body. So he remembers everything. Usually we forget everything from our previous life. And actually, that's kind of Krishna's mercy anyway. Can you imagine trying to? We have enough on our mind now. What to speak of if our mind was filled with everything from our previous life, and that life before that, and the life before that, and all the problems and anxieties, and then our lives as probably in the lower species at some point, and it would be impossible. So it's the Lord's blessing, in a sense, that we do forget previously, and we know of a previous life. We know that we'd existed before because, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad-bhagavatam explained like that. But to actually experience and remember everything from previous lives would be impossible. It couldn't exist. So Lord Krishna, though, he remembers everything from the beginning of time. And there is actually no beginning of time, but we say the beginning of time. We say from time immemorial, which is like saying from the beginning of time, because you can't figure out how far back time goes. And then Srila Prabhupada mentions here the analogy of the bird, the two birds. This time of year, we see lots of birds around. At least they're in my house. They're all coming. Usually when it starts getting cold, they fly south for the winter. They say, well, they do. So bird, but the analogy is there's birds. And one bird, they're friends. They're not enemies, they're friends. But one bird there's two birds sitting in a tree, and one bird is eating the fruits off of the tree, and then the other bird is just watching, observing. So in that analogy, we are the bird that's eating the fruits of the tree, and Krishna, the super soul, is the bird that is just observing. And of course, when that bird that's eating the fruits of the trees gets frustrated with the bitter fruits, and he looks around, then his friend, who's just observing, he's ready to give some knowledge. So so the super soul is in our heart, and he's in one sense he's directing us what to do, where to go, he's reminding us what our previous desires were that we didn't fulfill in a previous birth. He's there, and he's very much anxious to give us knowledge, actual knowledge, what is good for us. But he waits until we're ready. In reality, he always is telling us something, but we're not listening. We can't listen. So that's why it says that the spiritual master is they say the form, Srimad-bhagavatam says the form, direction of the supersoul, or something like that. He's representing the supersoul. Here we're saying, this verse is saying we should worship the supersoul. So you worship the same way, the spiritual master who is representing Krishna, or representing the supersoul, not different from he is Krishna. But by that's, and when we become ready, then that supersoul, inside the supersoul is directing us. It says by the mercy of Krishna, we find by the mercy of the supersoul we find spiritual master. By the mercy of the spiritual master, we can find Krishna. So we are without the blessings of the spiritual master, we would never even understand about the supersoul in the heart, and without the supersoul to direct us to come in contact and to have some faith in a spiritual master, that would also not be possible. So both the spiritual master and the supersoul are very important. Otherwise, we would not be sitting here right now. We all have our own experiences, but I know personally, when I was younger, before I joined the movement, I joined the movement when I was 19 years old. So before I joined the movement, I had my thoughts about what you assume, okay, I'm going to grow up, I'll get married probably, I'll get a job, what you see everyone else doing, but then what is the real purpose of life? So I had that general idea. Maybe I'll go to school, maybe I'll learn a trade, like that. But as far as what is really the purpose of life, I didn't know. I believed in God, and I thought God was an important part of my life, but I didn't. I was in a Christian background, which was nice in some ways, but there were questions that are not answered in Christianity or in any other religion, Judaism, Islam. There's just things that are not answered, and there are no answers. Well, there are answers, but not in those religions, right? So, and I was feeling that. I was attracted, but when I one time asked a Sunday school teacher when I was probably 15 or 16 years old, I guess. He was going to Sunday school lessons. I was that big. So I asked, if God loves us all the same, then why is there so much inequality in the world? I mean, why is one person born in this condition and another person's born in that condition, and why is there it just seemed like God is showing favoritism to some, and deciding that okay, you're going to heaven, you're going to enjoy now in this birth, and of course we only knew of this birth, so you're going to enjoy like this, and you're going to suffer like this, and I've just decided that's how it is. So I asked, why is this? How is this possible? We're taught that God loves everyone the same. God is, He loves all His children the same, like that. How is it possible that this is happening? And of course, there was no answer. They didn't have an answer, and they pretty much it's just the way God wants it. You have to accept that. He wants this one to suffer, and He wants this one to enjoy. I mean, I couldn't accept that, and I didn't know where else to turn, because these were the elders who were supposed to have all these answers, and I felt really frustrated. Anyway, I felt like that, and then probably a couple of years later, I finished high school and I was off for a little bit of college. I didn't go past the first year. I just joined the Hare Krishna movement, but, which was a good choice at that time. But anyway, I was off at college, and this is the first time also that I was kind of like away from the parents and everyone else. So I had a little time to look and experiment and like that. So I, a couple months into school, into my first quarter at the college, University of Florida, I met a devotee, and that devotee was I'd never seen devotees before, not in this lifetime anyway. Is sitting there as a sannyasi, is sitting there chanting Hare Krishna, playing cartels and singing outside behind the library at the university plaza of the Americas, they call it. And he was chanting for some time, then he would stop and speak for 5 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes, a little bit of the philosophy, and then he'd go back chanting. Mostly he was chanting. He was handing out a little bit of prasadam, simply wonderfuls, which he was making. Who was it? It was his name was Gargamuni Swami. It's the same original Gargamuni, but that family. So he was sannyasi at that time. So he was singing, and then he would speak a little bit, and then he would sing some more, and I had to happen to stop there on my way between classes, along with a lot of others who sat down there. But I guess it was my time, because that question and some other questions that I had that nobody could answer. I didn't ask him any questions. He just spoke, and he just spoke like. I thought that, wow, this is really high philosophy. It is, which it is, but what he spoke was actually the most basic of the most basic of Krishna consciousness. That you're not this body, and about reincarnation, and purpose of human form of life. I think, wow, there is actually a purpose for human form of life. So all this, whatever he spoke, about 10 minutes that first day, I said, hey, this is it. This is it. So that means that Krishna, super soul in my heart, when it was the right time, he directed me there to be there, to hear that, to somehow have faith that this was actually the real thing. And I just continued on at that point. This is right at the end of just before the Christmas break. So I saw him a couple of times then. I came back a few weeks later after the break, and then by that time someone had turned their apartment. Another student had turned their apartment using like a temple. So Gargamuni Swami showed me where it was, and I was there every day at some point and got a little prasadam and got my first set of beads, which in those days were given to you in a package of beads. You strung them yourself. A little package of 109 beads. and some string. And they said, okay, you tie the string up here, and you onto something, and then you put the beads on, and you tie a knot in between each one, and then you put the next bead, and you say Hare Krishna, chant the Hare Krishna mantra for each one as you're putting it on. So I did that, and then I said, how much are we supposed to be chanting? They said, well, we're supposed to be chanting 16 rounds a day. So I started chanting 16 rounds a day for the first day, like that. And I was hearing and they were doing a little reading of Srimad-bhagavatam in the morning at that time. So I started getting very attracted to that, the Srimad-bhagavatam, like that. It was actually a good time. And I was chanting so many rounds, walking back and forth between classes. But anyway, there's a super soul directed in that way. It was a time. If I had met someone 6 months before that, and I was with my parents, and they were, and I said, hey, I really like this. They probably would have tried to convince me otherwise. But I was at school, and I had a chance to see it and start with it and experience it and feel the results of chanting. I also got a Krishna book. I was given a Krishna book I gave a donation, so I got one of those big Krishna books at that time. I started reading that. So like that. So anyway, there's a super soul in the heart. He directed me there. And then 6 months, not 6 months later. Yeah, it was about 6 months later. And when I started going to the temple, the temple moved after a little while because the original, where they're having it, the landlord saw like about 15 or 16 devotees living inside there by that point, and they kicked everyone out. So went and got another place a little bit farther, just a couple of blocks off of the campus on the other side. So I started going there every day, and I started spending the weekend. One day, it was a Saturday night. I spent Saturday night at the temple and get up for Mongol Artik and the classes like that in the morning and chant all my rounds there. I did that for I did it for about 6 months there, and then the summer came and I decided, hey, I'm just gonna. That's what I want to do. So I left school, not to the liking of my parents, but I did leave school, and I moved into the temple. And 3 weeks after I moved into the temple, and Srila Prabhupada visited Gainesville, and he was only there for 24 hours. Arrived one morning and left the next morning. So in the morning he had his they call it arrival address. He sat there and he spoke to whoever was there to greet him. I'll be quick here. He spoke something there. I can't go too much into what he spoke right now because it's just realizing the time. But he spoke, and then in the middle of the day, a few hours later, then he went and he spoke outside behind the library, the same place where I first met a devotee. And he sat there and he spoke to the students. Seemed to be like pretty elevated information, which how are they going to understand this? I was getting a little learning something, but the Srila Prabhupada spoke, the incarnations and Mahavishnu and so many things he was speaking about. And then that night he had an interview, a TV interview at the University of Florida has a TV station. It was somewhere there or somewhere near there, but he had an interview. So he was there for that until it went kind of late at night. And then he came back to the temple in Gainesville. And then one of the devotees in the temple says, Srila Prabhupada agreed to do some initiations. You want to get initiated? So I was only living inside the temple for 3 weeks. Although I've been chanting for some time. And I was very surprised that they were even asking me, but I said, yeah, if I can. So Srila Prabhupada, they collected the beads of whoever was going to be initiated. There were four of us, I think, who got first initiation, and someone else had already been initiated and got second initiation. So we all went into Srila Prabhupada's room. He was sitting on his bed. He didn't have a shirt on. He was wearing like a gamcha, sitting there, and then he had all our beads there, so he held up each bead bag. Who is this? So whoever was claimed the beads, and then he would ask, so what are the rules and regulations you're agreeing to? And of course we'd say what it was, to chant at least 16 rounds a day of the Hare Krishna mantra for the rest of our lives, and to follow to not, no eating meat, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. So we did like that. And then Srila Prabhupada would give us our name, give us an explanation of the name, what it means, and of course give us our beads. So he handed me my beads. I gave made my initiation vows, and he handed me my beads. And he says, your name is Dharma Das. That means one who is a strict follower of all religious principles. But actually servant of one. But he said like that, that means one who is a strict follower of all religious principles. And of course I was very nervous. I was actually shaking, being that close. And after he gave the name, I said, can you tell me my name again? because I was it was all still new to me, and I was thinking, if I don't get my name right now, I'll never even know what my name is. It never occurred to me there's devotees who were understood, and they could tell me afterwards. But anyway, he again said, your name is Dharma Das. That means one who is a strict follower of all religious principles. So I got it then. So like that. And then, anyway, been here since. Like that. And the others were also Amarendra. Became Amarendra, the best of the immortals. This is what his name means. And his wife Gayatri, or Adrian, which became Gayatri, Devi Dasi. Something about a sacred song, like Gayatri mantra. And then another devotee named, I don't actually know what his name was, but his initiated name became Bhagavat Das. And he's still around. He associates more with other the Gaudiya Math group now. But anyway, he was that. So that was Srila Prabhupada's visit there. So going along with the purport here, so the Super Soul guides us, and somehow when we're ready to go, and he brings us in contact with devotees, and gives us that opportunity. And then we get the direction from within the heart, from the Super Soul, and we get the direction from out, from the spiritual master, who through his personal association and through his books, and by his example also. Srila didn't just talk; he talked it. They say talk the talk, walk the walk, or something. He didn't just speak. Everything that he told us to do, he was doing it at a whole higher level than what we could even think about doing, like that. But that's the way the system works. In fact, the whole universe has a purpose. The purpose is first to frustrate us, because we're here because of our desire for this minute independence. We're misusing our minute independence. So and we're trying to enjoy. So first purpose of the material universe, by sending us through all the up and down to the different species of life and everything, and so much suffering, attempts to enjoy, but actual suffering. Eventually, in the human form of life, we get that opportunity, and we actually start saying, "Hey, I've had enough of this. I want something higher, something better." So when we're ready, then also within the universe, Krishna sends spiritual masters, sends the Vedas, sends through the spiritual master, like Srila Prabhupada started ISKCON, other gurus have done other things over time. So when we are ready, that same universe that gave us a chance to try to play God, can't be God, but to play God, then that same universe is also there to give us the opportunity to get out when we're ready for that. So in that way, we say that the Sri Upanishad, Om Purnamaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasha Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So the universe is perfect, or no, it says the Supreme Lord is perfect and complete, and because He is completely perfect, everything that emanates from Him is also complete, as a complete whole, like that. So that's so the part of the way that God is complete, but the universe itself is all which He created is also complete, and the completeness is that it gives us what we need to get frustrated. So we want to get out, and then when we're ready to get out, we're ready to try to get out, then it also gives us the means to get out of the material universe by becoming Krishna conscious. Super soul, spiritual master, Vedas, and so on like that. Anyway, these are a couple of points here. Any questions, comments? Speak into the microphone if you do. So our, yeah.
That's awesome. That was really, really wonderful to hear your story. And obviously, university before and things. I remember when I was in my associate's degree, I was taking a world religion class, and I worked at the bookstore. And I remember seeing Sri Prabhupada, a little, and I learned that Sri Prabhupada, but I didn't do too much of it. I looked at yoga magazines and things like that. There were devotees there, but my ground wasn't ready for it. I used to wear the hijab, everything, and then in the world religions class, it was, I think we had to contact you as it is, and they opened it and closed it. They did not, and right away they had closed it, and I really didn't do much because it was like 9 books to read. And so it was interesting because it was around me when I wasn't ready. And it wasn't until I met Joshua group that in my life I tossed around enough that I was really seeking and I was ready to focus. It was really interesting because in the universities there are devotees, but some of us need a little bit more time. So I really appreciate your story because for Joshua group it connected much faster than for me. Getting the book, I get more of association and a little bit more guidance to getting there. So I really appreciate hearing your story. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, we're all on different levels,
Yes.
but whatever level we're on, and we're on different levels because we've progressed to some different amounts in previous lifetimes. This is actually spiritual life is a gradual process. So, Vedic culture was all centered around how to help everyone become Krishna conscious ultimately. But there was you had the opportunity for what we call demigod worship and all the things, and try to and try to enjoy in so many ways. And when you're ready, then the higher knowledge is also there. And so after many lifetimes, and it says that in Bhagavad Gita, after many births and deaths, how does the verse go? Many thousands among men and women, hardly one even endeavors for perfection, and of those who endeavor for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So So one can spend many, many lifetimes even in human form of life. If you're not sinful, you keep taking human births and getting elevated in different positions in human society, trying to enjoy, and out of one out of many actually take up even try to do something on the spiritual platform, maybe jnana yoga or beyond that is bhakti yoga. And then out of those who actually do something on the spiritual platform, hardly one actually understands Krishna as truth, as the Supreme Personality Godhead, and that we should dedicate our life into His devotional service. Hardly one understands that. So, and of course, once we come to that point that we at least understand in principle and start engaging in practical day-to-day devotional service, then of course we have to not give it up, because until there's always a chance of fall down until we become fully Krishna. And actually, until we come to the point of 100% pure love of Krishna, there's always that chance that we could make a mistake and fall down. There's always that chance. But of course, Krishna will help us if we're sincere. For the pure devotee, someone like Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. For someone like Srila Prabhupada, of course, Krishna is in his heart, or he is in his heart, but he's maybe standing right next to him too. But is directing him in every detail of his life. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says, the pure devotee on that level cannot make mistakes. It's basically just directed and more or less controlled by Krishna. So but then of course that's the level we want to come to. That we get to that point, so then there's no question of falling down. And then Krishna says that once having returned to my eternal abode, you will never take birth in this miserable material world again. Right? So you don't have to be concerned that, okay, I make all this endeavor to get back to the spiritual world. What if I make a mistake again and come back here and get entangled again? But Krishna promises that once having gone back, we will not make that mistake again. Which means this is our first time in the material world. Of course, we probably stayed here for a long time, but we've only left the spiritual world one time, according to that. And once we go back, we won't mess up again. We will remember our mistake and say, I'm not going to go through that one again. I've had enough. And that's the idea. This is a prison. By the time you get out of prison, you go back home, go back to the spiritual world, and say, I don't want to go back to prison. There's no way. Oh, sorry.
I appreciate the story. At least for our generation, I like to watch the Prabhupada movies. And, each story with someone, how they meet devotees, is always transcendental. So when you were telling it, I was becoming enlightened. I was like, this is, people watch movies and stuff to get excited. This is exciting for me to hear. But what you said about the super soul, I had a very similar. What happened to me, I was on campus my first year as well, and I saw someone sitting with books, and I walked past, and I was just, I just thought that's kind of cool. And I just walked past, but something stopped me to the point, and I heard we have to go back. It was sort of audible. I always thought that what was that was something that, I wouldn't say that it was for sure, but maybe a super soul in that way. But I stopped immediately when I heard that. I went back and it was a problem. I said, it was being led to the Bhagavatam. Immediately, I took it and wrote notes and everything. And the next 2 weeks, I looked for her. Again, she wasn't there. And when I did find her again, she gave me Bhagavatam. And that was it. It changed my life forever. But because if I would have just walked past, but at that point, I was ready. I was so much into spirituality and had questions, but you know, at that point something stopped me.
Yes, Krishna's in your heart, and he said, okay, now is your time.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's like we talk about these things, super soul and fire and birds, but it is real. It's real that you're directed in this way. But hard to get that story. I'm gonna call that at the end. The story. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So I see it's getting very late, for me anyway. So let's finish here, and tomorrow it's Chaitanya Charitamrita, yeah. And then back to the Srimad-bhagavatam, Monday through Friday. And I guess if there's some really special day and have some information, then we can put that in between. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.